She never wore that color. It was the first thing I noticed when I opened the bathroom drawer that morning, tucked awkwardly between her floss and a nearly empty tube of concealer, like it didn't belong there. A lipstick, deep red, with a shimmer I hadn't seen on her lips in years. Julia wore soft tones, peach, muted rose, the occasional coral when we went out. This one was different. Bold. Cheap. It still had the factory seal, slightly torn at the edge, like someone had opened it hastily and then thought better of it. That's what got me. Not the color, not even the brand I didn't recognize. It was the position, the carelessness of it, as if she had hidden it not from me, but from herself. I stood there a moment, toothbrush in hand, letting that cold trickle of knowing seep through me. I didn't jump to conclusions. I've never been that kind of man. But there's a certain chill that seeps in when your instincts stop whispering and start murmuring in your bones. That morning, they weren't screaming yet. Just murmuring. She came out of the bedroom wrapped in the towel she always used, the blue one with the frayed edge I kept telling her to throw out. Her hair was wet. She smiled. I forgot to grab my serum, she said, slipping past me. I nodded, brushing slowly. She didn't look at the drawer. That drawer had always been hers. It was the only space in the house I never touched. That's why it didn't make sense. The lipstick wouldn't be mine, wouldn't be anything I would move. It hadn't been misplaced. It had been hidden, and not well. That's when the second whisper started. After she left for work, I went back to the drawer and picked it up again. No receipt, no packaging. Just a faint smudge at the base, fingerprint, maybe. The scent was synthetic, almost adolescent. Something about it felt performative, like it was meant for someone to notice. Someone else. That's when I remembered the dinner 2 nights ago, how she had come back late from her book club, laughing, cheeks flushed. She said it was wine. Maybe it was. But now, the edges of that memory started to shimmer, like heat rising off asphalt. Her laugh had been too loud. Her hug too distracted. And there had been a faint red stain on the inside of her jacket collar. I told myself it was sauce. Now I wasn't so sure. I didn't confront her. That would have been too easy. I watched. I listened. Patterns started to shift. Julia began showering at odd hours, like the sweat of something needed to be scrubbed off before it clung to her skin. She stopped leaving her phone face up. She started leaving for work 15 minutes earlier than usual, but her commute hadn't changed. One night, I walked into the kitchen and saw her staring out the window, not at anything, just gone. She flinched when I said her name. Not guilt, fear. As if I'd caught her in a daydream she wasn't supposed to be having. I said nothing. I went back to the living room and rewound the moment in my mind 100 times. Then came the photo. I found it tucked into the bottom of the laundry basket. Not lying out in the open. No, that would have been too obvious. It was stuck between a pair of her gym leggings and a T-shirt I didn't recognize. At first, I thought it was garbage, some receipt or label. But when I pulled it out, it was a photo. An old-school Polaroid, slightly overexposed. Julia, smiling, sitting on a park bench. She was looking at someone behind the camera with a softness I hadn't seen in years. Her lips were red. That lipstick. Her hand rested on someone's knee, just barely visible in the corner of the frame. Male. Jeans. A tan jacket I didn't own. My hands didn't shake. My pulse didn't spike. I just stood there, holding the photo like it was a document from another dimension. Like she existed somewhere else, with someone else, and this house was just a shell she walked through in between visits to her real life. She came home that night and kissed me like nothing was wrong. She laughed at something stupid on TV. We had dinner. She talked about a meeting at work, about Karen from HR and her god-awful perfume. I nodded, smiling where I should, laughing where I should. But something inside me had already gone still. Not dead, just still. Like the part of a predator that waits in tall grass. I had no intention of confronting her. Not yet. I wanted her to unravel. To let her grip slip slowly. To let the ghost of suspicion whisper into her own mind the way it had whispered into mine. And that's when I remembered her friend. The one she always said I was being paranoid about. Laura, the new girl at her office, the one with the overly friendly laugh, the long red nails, the gym selfie she liked at midnight. I used to let it slide. Used to tell myself it was nothing. But now I had a new strategy. I wasn't going to ask questions. I was going to become the ghost in her head. The shadow that never quite resolves into a figure. And I knew exactly where to start. She always used to ask if I wanted anything when she went out. Coffee, a snack, even just a drink from the gas station. Tiny gestures that added up to the quiet rhythm of our life together. But now, she'd leave without a word. I'd hear the keys jingle, the door shut, and that was it. Sometimes she'd say she was going for a walk. Other times she wouldn't say anything at all. The first few times, I chalked it up to stress, to needing space. Everyone needs air, I told myself. But air doesn't usually come with freshly done makeup, that same red lipstick, and a blouse she hadn't worn in years. One Saturday afternoon, she left saying she needed to clear her head, and came back 4 hours later smelling like a hotel lobby. That synthetic blend of too much air freshener and something faintly sexual. She said she went to the bookstore. I didn't say a word. I just nodded and asked if she found anything good. She said no, and then disappeared into the shower before I could ask anything else. She started using new words. Words we'd never used in our marriage. She talked about boundaries like I was violating them just by sitting next to her on the couch. She said things like, "I'm on a journey right now," or "this phase is about growth." But there was never a we in those sentences. No shared vision. Just her, carving out a space that I wasn't invited into. At dinner, she'd talk about people I'd never met, new coworkers, a mentor she never named, a friend from the gym who got her. She smiled more when she talked about them than she ever did when she talked to me. Her laughter changed too, louder, sharper, almost performative, like she was practicing joy for someone else. She still smiled at me, but it was the smile you give a stranger who holds a door open. Polite. Hollow. One night, I was cleaning out the car while she was in the shower. It wasn't intentional. I just noticed some trash in the back seat and decided to tidy up. That's when I found the second pair of sunglasses. Not hers, not mine. Women's, yes, but sleeker, a brand she'd once said was too flashy for her taste. They were tucked halfway under the passenger seat. Not well hidden, but not exactly placed either. Like someone had dropped them in a hurry. I put them in the glove box, not knowing why, just needing to move them out of sight. She never mentioned them. Never came looking. Days passed. Then a week. If she noticed they were gone, she didn't ask. I started watching her more closely after that. Not obsessively, just carefully. Her phone was always angled away from me now. Notifications turned off. She used to scroll openly, laugh at memes, show me reels from that dog account she loved. Now it was just silence. Screen, tap, silence. She changed her passwords. I noticed one morning when I reached for the iPad we both used to stream movies. Suddenly, the Netflix account asked for a login. I asked her if she changed it, and she just said, "Oh yeah, sorry, I had to update some things." No explanation. No follow-up. Then came her Instagram. Private. Locked. Not blocked, just distant. I hadn't even realized until I went to tag her in a photo of our dog and got a message saying, "This account is private." When I asked, she shrugged. I just want more control over who sees my stuff. I didn't push. I just nodded. But something in my gut twisted. She used to tag me in everything: morning coffees, beach days, even dumb grocery store jokes. Now, nothing. I started wondering who she was sharing it with. She began coming home late. Not drastically, just enough to notice. 10 minutes, then 20, then nearly an hour one night. She'd say it was traffic, or a work thing that ran over. She never looked flustered or rushed. Always calm. Always rehearsed. I could tell when someone was bullshitting me. I've worked in corporate long enough to know the tone. But she was good. Too good. The kind of good you only get when you've been practicing it for a while. One evening, she walked in at 9:30, set her bag down, and smiled like nothing was out of place. I asked if everything was okay. She kissed me on the forehead and said, "Just a long day." But her eyes didn't match the softness in her voice. Her body moved like a dancer hitting her marks, but her eyes were somewhere else entirely. Then she bought the dress. It showed up one day, draped over the back of a chair in our bedroom. A deep burgundy, almost wine-colored, with a slit up the side she would have blushed at a year ago. Tag still on. No receipt. No explanation. "It's for a thing," she said when I asked. "What thing?" I asked casually. She paused, smiled like I was being silly, and said, "A work event. Networking." But she didn't wear it to any event I ever saw. It disappeared the next day, back into the closet or out of the house entirely. I never saw it again. Still, I said nothing. I told myself love meant trust. That sometimes people go through phases. That it would pass. But deep down, something was growing. Not hate. Not even anger. Just this cold, steady understanding. Like standing at the edge of a lake in winter, watching the ice form inch by inch. You don't panic. You don't shout. You just realize you're going to drown if you don't start planning your next move. It was a Thursday night, unremarkable in every way. She said she had a team dinner, a quick thing, nothing fancy, and left in a loose black dress that she'd paired with heels I hadn't seen in over a year. I made pasta for myself, fed the dog, put on a documentary I wasn't really watching. Around 8:30, I got a text. Dinner's running a bit late. Love you. No photo. No location. Just words. I stared at that text for a long time, feeling nothing at all. Not confusion. Not rage. Just a low hum behind my ribs, like something mechanical was starting to turn. 10 minutes later, I walked into the bedroom and saw her iPad glowing softly on the nightstand. She never brought it out anymore. Said she preferred her phone. But there it was, screen lit, notifications on. I didn't go looking for anything. I just tapped the screen, expecting to see maybe an email or a calendar alert. Instead, I saw a photo. A preview from a cloud sync. The title, shared from Pixel device. My stomach didn't drop. My hands didn't shake. I just swiped. It was her. In the same dress. Same heels. Hair curled. But not at a restaurant. She was standing in a mirror, head tilted, smile just slightly wrong. She'd taken the photo herself, one of those tilted hip, lips parted poses she used to send me back when we were still new, still hungry. But this photo wasn't sent to me. It had been auto-synced to the cloud through her forgotten settings. I checked the timestamp. 20 minutes ago. I looked at the next one. She was sitting on a bed, cheap covers, brownish red walls, fluorescent lighting. A motel. Not a hotel. I recognized the look of it immediately. She was taking a sip from a wine bottle with the cap still screwed on, laughing at something off camera. Her bra strap was off her shoulder. I didn't tap again. I didn't need to. I sat down on the edge of the bed, staring at the screen. The air was thick. Still. Like the moment before a thunderclap. I heard the heater hum from the hallway vent and the soft clicking of the dog's nails on the kitchen tile. Life went on. My life, however, had just exited the realm of love and entered something colder. Cleaner. I wasn't shocked. I wasn't even heartbroken. It felt like watching a piece of furniture catch fire slowly, something that had once belonged to you, now irreparably ruined, still burning quietly in your living room while you stood by the window and planned how to repaint the walls after the smoke cleared. I backed out of the photos and opened the synced message log. There was a thread, unnamed, no photo ID. Just a letter. J. Their last exchange was brief. She'd texted, leaving now. Can't wait to see you. That thing you did last time, do it again tonight. He responded with a winking emoji and, don't forget the lipstick. I didn't take screenshots. I didn't send it to myself. I didn't confront her. I simply got up, walked into the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and stared at the calendar on the fridge. There was nothing marked for today. No team dinner. Just her messy handwriting over the coming weekend, self-care day, it said. Right. I finished the water, washed the glass, and then calmly walked back to the bedroom. I put the iPad back exactly where it had been. She'd never even notice it was moved. Then I opened the closet and took a slow inventory. Her favorite bag was gone, the black leather one I bought her for her promotion last year. I remembered now. She'd taken it from the top shelf earlier, saying it was good for meetings. I counted the shoes. One pair missing, red heels. Not the ones she was wearing tonight. A different pair. I closed the door, sat on the edge of the bed again, and let the silence grow teeth. When she came home, it was past 10. She walked in quietly, pretending to yawn, as if she was too tired to explain. I was sitting in the living room, reading. She looked surprised to see me awake. Didn't expect you to still be up, she said. I smiled, slow and controlled. Couldn't sleep, I replied. She kissed me on the cheek. I could smell wine, but it wasn't the kind we kept in the house. She went to the kitchen, filled a glass of water, and didn't say another word. No stories about coworkers. No jokes. Just silence. And that silence told me everything. I didn't ask how the dinner went. I didn't ask who Jay was. I didn't accuse, or cry, or pace. I simply watched. And the thing is, she knew. She didn't know how much I knew, but something in her gut must have shifted, because for the first time in weeks, she looked nervous. Her hands trembled slightly as she washed the glass. She glanced over her shoulder once, just once, like she could feel something shifting in the air between us. That was the moment she felt it, the subtle shift from suspicion to certainty, from husband to strategist, from betrayed to calculating. I kissed her goodnight and went to bed. She followed, crawling under the sheets like nothing had happened. But the war had already started. She just hadn't seen the opening shot yet. I started with the car. Hers, not mine. She had a habit of tossing things into the glove box and never cleaning it out, so one morning after she left for hot yoga, I took my spare key and drove it a few blocks away under the excuse of rotating the tires, just in case she noticed the mileage. I didn't expect to find much, maybe a receipt, a phone charger that wasn't ours, but what I found was better. A parking validation stub for a building across town. The date matched the night. She said she was at a charity mixer. I looked it up. It wasn't a hotel or a restaurant. It was a condo building. High-end, discreet. I wrote the address down, put everything back exactly the way I found it, and returned the car to its spot like I had never touched it. That night, when she casually mentioned how boring the mixer had been, I asked her what venue it was at. She paused, then said the usual place. I nodded, watching her eyes. She didn't blink. She thought she'd gotten away with it. That was her mistake. I didn't ask again. I just smiled and offered to do the dishes. 2 days later, I checked our bank statements. I had to go back 3 months to find the pattern. Small transactions. A wine shop near the condo. A florist whose name I didn't recognize. A rideshare charge ending near the same building. Once, twice, then regularly, every other Thursday. I screenshotted everything. Created a private folder on a cloud drive she didn't know existed. Then I called an old friend from college, Jake, a software engineer who owed me more than one favor. I told him I needed a phone ping trace, not constant surveillance, just passive location sync. He didn't ask questions. 24 hours later, I had a portal that showed me, in real time, where her phone was. That Friday, she said she was going to a coworker's birthday dinner. I nodded, helped zip her dress, told her she looked amazing, watched the car pull out of the driveway, and then opened the portal. 23 minutes later, her phone pinged at the same condo address. I sat on the couch and watched the little dust stay there for over 3 hours. No movement. No Uber ride. No excuse. No dinner. I didn't text. Didn't call. I just waited. She came back around midnight, smelling like wine and another man's cologne. The kind that lingers. She was flushed, full of fake laughter. Said they ended up club hopping after dinner. I kissed her forehead and told her I was glad she had fun. Her eyes scanned my face like she was expecting something. Jealousy, suspicion, control. All she saw was calm. The next morning, I made breakfast and asked about her friend Melissa, the one she always said she was with. I dropped the question casually, like it was a passing thought. She hesitated just long enough to betray herself. Said Melissa had left early, said she stayed out with some other girls. I nodded. Then I made my move. I texted Melissa that afternoon. Told her Julia forgot her scarf. Asked if I could drop it off. Melissa replied, "Scarf? I haven't seen Julia in weeks." I thanked her. Deleted the message. Later that night, I brought up Melissa again. She told me you two haven't hung out in a while, I said with a smile. She blinked. Laughed it off. Oh, she probably forgot, she said. We've been texting a lot, but haven't caught up in person. She thought I was still in the dark. That's what made it so easy. I started laying traps. I picked a random Wednesday and told her I'd be working late. Something with the server migration, lots of tech issues. She kissed me goodbye, left for her usual group meditation night. That's when I sent Jake a signal. He pinged her location again. 10 minutes later, her dot was at the same address. Condo 15B. This time, I took it further. I paid a courier service to deliver a box of flowers there the next day. White orchids, her favorite, with a card that read, "Last night was unforgettable. Same time next week." I signed it with the letter J. I waited. That evening, she came home, unsettled. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. She moved slower, drank more wine, kept checking her phone like it might detonate. When I asked how her day was, she said it was weird, that someone at work had gotten a strange delivery meant for someone else. I tilted my head. That's wild. Who sends flowers to the wrong office? She nodded, eyes flicking away. She was slipping, starting to question her own control. But I wasn't done. I logged into her work calendar using the autofill data she left on our shared desktop. She had nothing scheduled for the next Friday, yet told me she was keynote support for a conference panel. I said I was flying out for a surprise client meeting. She said, "That's a shame, we'll miss each other." I smiled and kissed her hand. Friday night, she was right back at 15B. I watched her dot land. Stay. I took a screenshot. Then another. Then again, every half hour until past midnight. She was consistent, at least. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was hurt. I'd already buried that part of myself. I stayed up because I was calculating, measuring the pressure, timing the exact moment she'd break without knowing how. The truth was no longer the goal. I already had that. What I wanted now was precision. Timing. The kill stroke had to be surgical. Not just exposure, but collapse. She was already standing on the trapdoor. All I had to do was wait until she danced her way to the center. It was her company's annual gala, a black tie event she'd been buzzing about for weeks, rambling about hors d'oeuvres, the keynote speaker, and how her team might finally win the Innovation Award this year. She insisted I come, told me we needed to show face as a couple. I agreed. I wore the tailored charcoal suit she used to love, let her adjust my tie like she still cared, kissed her shoulder when she wasn't looking. We arrived at the venue, a sleek, glass-walled hall in the heart of downtown, where servers moved like shadows and champagne never stopped flowing. She flitted from table to table, arm brushing mine when cameras were nearby, smile radiating for everyone but me. And I waited. The screens lit up just before dessert, projectors on either side of the room, rotating photos of each team and their recent projects. It was her idea, she'd said, to highlight collaboration, trust, and transparency. As applause erupted for one slide, the screen paused. A new image faded in, not part of any slideshow. Her. In a hotel mirror, red lipstick, dress halfway down, laughing at the camera. A man's hand on her waist. Then another photo. Their dinner, wine glasses clinking, her fingers grazing his. One more, her head tilted back in a motel bed, eyes closed, mouth open in a private moment made public. Gasps filled the room like a wave. Someone dropped a fork. She froze, her face blank for a second, then flushed white. I stood 5 feet from her, hands in my pockets, not moving. She turned to me, eyes darting like a trapped animal. "What the hell is that?" she hissed, then louder, "That's not what it looks like." I said nothing. She stepped closer, voice trembling. It was a joke. A stupid joke. Just pictures, nothing happened. I watched her lie, bold and brazen, because she thought she still had a shot at the old me. "We were just talking," she added, now desperate. "I was lonely. You've been distant." Her voice broke slightly. She reached for my hand. I didn't move. She swallowed hard. "It was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. We were going to end it." Still nothing from me. Then came the pivot. "You ignored me for months," she snapped. "You checked out. You never asked how I felt. What did you expect? I needed someone. The blame, textbook." Her voice grew sharper. "You're making a scene. You're humiliating yourself. You don't even know the full story." She smirked, just slightly, masking panic with arrogance. "You want to throw away everything over some pictures?" The crowd wasn't looking at the screen anymore. They were watching us. Watching her. The perfect wife. The face of the company. Exposed. And then she finally saw it. My silence wasn't shock. It was calculation. Cold, deliberate, surgical. Her smirk fell. "Say something," she whispered, now scared. I looked at her, took one slow step forward, and said, low and clear, "You deserve the man you betrayed me for, and the life he will never give you." She staggered back like I'd slapped her. The color drained from her face. The room was silent, holding its breath. I didn't move. I didn't leave. I just stood there, letting the moment burn into her forever. She was already falling, and I wasn't going to catch her. She came home 2 hours after the gala, red-eyed and shaking, slamming the front door like the force of it could shatter what she'd already destroyed. "You humiliated me," she spat the moment she saw me sitting on the couch, calm, composed, unmoved. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Her voice cracked at the end, high and shrill. I looked at her, but didn't speak. That silence, that unbearable void, twisted something inside her. She paced the living room like a caged thing, hands trembling as she pulled off her heels and threw them against the wall. "You didn't even give me a chance to explain," she screamed. I didn't blink. "You showed the whole company my private photos. That's psychotic." I set down my glass of water, stood slowly, and looked her dead in the eye. "They weren't private. You just didn't want them seen." She froze for a second, her mouth still open like she wanted to reply but couldn't find the words. Then the guilt act began. "You think this was easy for me," she said, voice suddenly softer, wounded. "I was drowning. You stopped seeing me. I needed to feel wanted again. It wasn't about sex, it was about being alive." I stepped past her and replied, "So you chose to feel alive by dying inside someone else's bed." She gasped like I'd struck her, tears brimming, but I wasn't done. "You didn't fall out of love. You fell into convenience. You just thought I'd never notice. Her expression twisted, and just like that, the guilt turned to rage. You smothered me, she shouted, voice shaking. Always watching. Always judging. You were like a shadow I couldn't escape. It was like being in a goddamn cage. I tilted my head slightly. No. You weren't caged. You were bored. There's a difference. That one landed. She recoiled like I'd read a page in her diary out loud. You know what? She said, spitting the words. You were boring. Predictable. Safe. You planned every goddamn detail of your life like it was a business pitch. No fire. No danger. No passion. I felt like I was dying in here. I smiled, small and controlled. So you lit a match and called it liberation. Her mouth opened again, but nothing came out. I could see the rage building, the panic behind it, the cracks starting to widen. She was losing control and she knew it. This wouldn't have happened if you were a real man, she snarled. I stepped closer, not raising my voice, not touching her, just looking. A real man. I echoed. A real man doesn't need to tear someone down to feel desired. A real man doesn't lie in someone else's bed and come home to fake smiles and borrowed guilt. You didn't cheat because I wasn't a real man. You cheated because you're not a real woman. Her eyes went wide, face pale. That one hit bone. She tried to slap me. I caught her wrist midair and lowered it slowly, deliberately. Don't, I said. Just that. One word. Her lips trembled. I made a mistake, she whispered now, switching tactics again, desperate, clinging to whatever identity she hadn't yet burned. I got lost. But I'm here now. I'm trying. I leaned in just close enough for her to hear the ice in my voice. You weren't lost. You just wanted to see how far you could go before someone stopped you. I'm not stopping you. I'm just walking away. That was the final blow. Her shoulders collapsed, like someone had drained her of breath. Please, she said, finally begging. Please, I can fix this. We can go to therapy. I'll block him. I'll delete everything. But I was already walking to the door. I didn't look back. You already deleted everything that mattered. She fell to her knees behind me, sobbing, saying my name like it was a prayer too late. But I was gone. Not physically, not yet. But emotionally, spiritually, psychically, I'd already stepped into a new life. One she'd never be part of again. She didn't lose me tonight because she cheated. She lost me because she thought I'd stay broken. That's what scared her most. Not the photos. Not the public disgrace. But the man who didn't scream, didn't crumble, just stood still while she shattered. The moment the door closed behind me that night, I knew exactly how this would end. Not in chaos, not in screaming or shattered plates, but in silence, in cold, calculated dismantling. Revenge wasn't the goal. Correction was. Balance. I wanted her to lose everything she thought she could juggle while keeping me on standby. So I began where any strategist would, gathering intelligence. I collected every photo, every message, every ping from her GPS tracker. Screenshots were archived, cloud-synced, copied onto a flash drive hidden inside an unused outlet cover in the guest room. I even downloaded the timestamped footage from the condo lobby, courtesy of a favor from an old friend in property management. Everything was dated, organized, indisputable. The narrative wasn't emotional, it was surgical. Then I turned to the finances. Our accounts had always been shared, but I had kept a separate one, discreet, never hidden, just never discussed. I rerouted my direct deposit to it and transferred half the remaining joint balance into my private account. Legally clean. Then I froze the joint credit cards. She wouldn't notice at first, the ones in her name would still work. But when she tried to use the backup card at a boutique spa next Thursday, already booked under her email, I wanted her to hear the denial at the counter. Quiet, inconvenient panic. I reclaimed the car. Technically, it was under my name alone. I'd paid the down payment, paid the insurance. She just drove it. I took it while she slept, dropped it at a friend's garage across town, replaced it with a spare key and a folded note. You'll want to check your coverage. Utilities came next. The house was in my name. So was the water, the electric, the Wi-Fi she used to stream her lies. I scheduled transfers, cancellations, password changes. Nothing immediate. Just staggered enough that, one by one, she'd lose control, first the heat, then the lights, then her sense of place. Her email, she hadn't logged out on the old laptop. Rookie mistake. I didn't snoop. I downloaded the full backup, flagged anything questionable, then closed the device. Next came her reputation. I didn't go nuclear. Not yet. I composed one email, polite, formal, devastatingly precise, and sent it to her HR department from an anonymous tip line. No slander. Just links, screenshots, dates. A suggestion to review company policy regarding inter-office relationships and inappropriate conduct during work-related events. No signature, just silence. Her boss would find it Monday morning. I also prepared 2 care packages. One for her parents, one for her sister. Not dramatic, just factual. A letter, a USB drive with evidence, and a short note. I thought you deserved to know what she's been doing. She may need you soon. Then I set up a timed delivery through a local courier. Both would arrive the same morning I filed for divorce. I didn't tell her. Not yet. I went to the courthouse on a Thursday afternoon, filed the paperwork, and had it marked for discreet service by a private process server. She'd get the papers the day after her fake self-care retreat. The kicker? I canceled the retreat booking. Used her card to book a fake trip to a destination an hour away, with no real plans. She'd arrive, find nothing, then come home to a manila envelope with her name in all caps. I arranged the utilities to shut off that same evening. I wanted her confused, cold, lost. She still believed she had time. Still believed she could manipulate the narrative. She hadn't seen me pull away yet. She mistook quiet for indecision. That was her final miscalculation. I even went further. Her lover, Jay, didn't know she was married. I found his profile. Watched him post gym selfies and motivational quotes. So I created an account using an alternate email. I followed him, liked a few posts, then messaged, "Hey, you might want to know who you're really sleeping with. She's married. Still sleeping in his bed. Here's proof." I sent 4 photos. 3 messages. 1 quiet bomb. No response. Just seen. The next day, I noticed she was on edge. Her phone buzzed more than usual. She kept checking it, even left it face up once. A rookie move. I didn't look. I didn't need to. The unraveling had begun. I wasn't angry anymore. I was orchestrating. She was a house built on termites, pretty from the outside, but every beam hollow. I was just flicking the match on my way out. She wouldn't see the flames until the smoke was already curling under the door. It started with her sister. A quiet knock on the door just after noon, the day she came back from her fake retreat, bags in hand, face sun-kissed, wearing a smile she hadn't earned. She was mid-laugh, telling me about some meditation guru she accidentally met, when the door opened and there stood Rachel, arms crossed, jaw locked, holding the envelope I'd sent. Julia blinked. "Hey, what are you?" Rachel didn't speak. Just walked in, laid the USB on the table, and looked her dead in the eye. "You're disgusting," she said, and walked out. No explanation. No shouting. Just surgical disgust. Julia called after her, stunned, but the door had already shut. She turned to me, eyes wide, voice trembling. "What the hell was that?" I said nothing. Just kept sipping my coffee. She stared at me, and for the first time, I saw her doubt herself. Not just the lie, but the entire mask. Then the phone rang. Her father. She picked up, voice faltering. "Hey, Dad." She listened. And whatever he said on the other end gutted her. Her face crumbled like plaster under pressure. No, it's not. That's not fair," she cried, pacing, gripping the phone like it might bite her. "You don't understand." "I know. I didn't mean to. It wasn't serious." Her voice broke, rising into panic. "Dad, please, don't do this. Don't." And then silence. He hung up. She stood frozen, mouth still open like she'd been slapped. I watched her try to form a sentence, then drop the phone onto the couch and crumple onto it like the weight of the world had shifted entirely onto her shoulders. She didn't cry, not yet. Just stared blankly at the floor, lips twitching, blinking too fast. Then came the next blow. A ding from her phone. A message preview. She reached for it with a gasp, hoping for something, anything, that didn't sting. It was from Jay. 1 sentence. "You told me you were divorced. Lose my number." She reread it. Again. And again. And then the tears came as silent, hot, angry. Not grief. Rage. She launched the phone across the room, and it shattered against the wall in a cheap, desperate tantrum. "This isn't happening," she whispered. This wasn't supposed to." Her voice cracked. "You did this," she said, turning to me like a feral animal. "You've been planning this." I nodded once. "Since the night you came home smelling like him." She staggered back like the words hit her in the stomach. "You vindictive, manipulative son of a..." But her voice faltered mid-curse, because she knew she'd lost the right to moral high ground long ago. And then, just when she thought the worst had passed, came the real execution. We were scheduled to attend her company's spring luncheon. Big event. Awards. Speeches. Everyone would be there. I told her I still planned on going. She looked at me like I was insane. After everything? She asked. Why would you want to show up with me? I smiled. To support you. Isn't that what we always do? She looked confused. Vulnerable. She wore a gray dress. Modest. Polished. Hair up. Makeup just right. Not too bold. A woman trying to reclaim dignity. She clung to my arm like a lifeline as we walked into the venue. The room buzzed. Colleagues glanced at her, then at me, then back again. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Smiles faded. It was palpable, like someone had pumped the air full of judgment. Her boss, usually warm, barely nodded at her. The HR director didn't make eye contact. The host forgot to mention her name in the introduction. But the real moment came during lunch. Her coworker Rachel, another Rachel, stood to make a toast. Today we celebrate integrity, honesty, and leadership, she said. Then she paused, eyes drifting across the room until they landed directly on Julia. Values that don't just belong in our presentations, but in our private lives too. Subtle, lethal. Julia's hand trembled around her glass. Her smile cracked. She tried to laugh, a weak, strangled sound, but it died in her throat. Then her phone buzzed, her new one, already replaced. A message from someone on the team. Thought you should know. Everyone's seen the photos. She dropped the phone. It clattered to the floor. The table went quiet. She reached for it like it might save her, but her hands were shaking too much. When she looked up, everyone was staring. Not in shock, judgment, contempt. She opened her mouth to speak, to explain, to lie, but nothing came out. Just that twitching smile, that broken laugh. This is blown way out of proportion, she whispered to no one in particular. It's not, it was private. No one answered. No one looked away. I sat perfectly still beside her, hands folded, face neutral. I didn't need to say anything. My presence said everything. Her gaze snapped to me, desperate, pleading, furious. But I just met her eyes and blinked, once. She knew then. Knew there was no way back. No reset. No forgiveness. I'd already stepped out of the story. She was alone now. Not abandoned, exposed. She lowered her head, face flushed, shoulders shaking. And I watched. Quiet. Unforgiving. Present. That was what broke her. Not the shame. Not the evidence. But the fact that I stayed, silent and still, while everything she built collapsed around her. It happened at her mother's house, a last-ditch family gathering Julia had insisted on hosting. Like she could still control the narrative. Like one polite dinner with linen napkins and fake laughter would fix the crater she'd blasted through both our lives. The room was full. Her parents, her younger brother, two of her co-workers she still had left, even her so-called best friend Danielle, who hadn't looked at her the same since I sent her a folder titled The Other Julia. I was quiet through dinner, answering questions with polite efficiency, watching her sweat through small talk, while pretending her world hadn't imploded. But it was when her father raised his glass to second chances and glanced at me, genuinely, without irony, that she snapped. "You're really going to sit there like a saint?" she said suddenly, loud enough to silence the room. Forks paused midair. Her mother looked horrified. "Pretending you did nothing to push me away?" she continued, eyes locked on mine like she wanted a war. I didn't flinch. "Go on," I said calmly. "Tell them all what I did." She stood now, voice rising. "You smothered me. You made everything about control. I couldn't breathe without you monitoring me like a prison guard. You turned me into some trophy wife and then punished me when I needed space." I laughed, just once, just enough to ignite her fury. "You weren't suffocating, Julia. You were hiding. There's a difference." Gasps rippled through the table. Danielle leaned forward. "Wait, you lied to him." Julia rounded on her. "You don't know what it was like," she snapped. "You all think he's this perfect, loyal man. You have no idea what it's like to be married to someone who looks through you every single day." "Then you should have left," I said, rising slowly, my voice slicing through the tension like glass. "You should have packed your things and walked out the front door. But instead, you stayed, smiling, kissing me, lying every single day while you sneaked off to that condo like a coward." "Because I didn't want to hurt you," she screamed, face flushed, mascara smudging at the corners. "I still loved you." "Loved me?" I repeated, stepping closer, my voice suddenly thunderous. "You loved me while undressing for another man? You loved me while whispering the same compliments I gave you into someone else's ear? You don't love anyone, Julia. You love attention. You love the reflection you see in other people's eyes, as long as it makes you feel alive. That's not love. That's performance. Her mother covered her mouth. Her father stood but didn't move. Danielle whispered, "My God," under her breath. "I made one mistake," Julia shouted, wild now, spinning to the room. "One mistake, and now I'm the villain? You people are all hypocrites." "One," I said, stepping forward again, holding her gaze like a mirror she couldn't escape. "One mistake, every Thursday for 6 months. One mistake in the form of lies, secrecy, hotel beds, and deleted messages. One mistake for every time you kissed me and pretended it meant something. You're just bitter," she shrieked, voice cracking. "You planned this whole thing. You wanted me to fail so you could look like the martyr." "I wanted a wife," I said coldly. "I got an actress. You begged for trust. I gave it. You begged for freedom. I gave it. And when I finally stopped chasing, you punished me for not trying hard enough to hold on to someone who was already gone." Her father stepped between us now, not to defend her, but to protect her from what was coming. "Stop," he said to her, gently. "You need to stop talking." But she wouldn't. She couldn't. She was unraveling in real time, and the silence of the room only made it worse. "You're all on his side," she said, turning to each person like a betrayed queen. "After everything? He's not innocent. He's just better at playing the game." That's when I delivered the final cut. "I didn't play a game, Julia. I played you. Every tear you faked, every excuse, every late night. I watched, listened, waited. You thought I was weak because I didn't explode. But you never saw the day I stopped loving you. I buried that part so deep, you kept dancing on its grave thinking it was still alive." She collapsed into a chair, sobbing now, makeup streaked, dress wrinkled, the room watching her fall apart like a slow-motion car crash. Danielle stood and walked over to my side. Her father sat back down, staring at his plate, ashamed. Her mother wiped her eyes but said nothing. No one moved to comfort her. No one defended her. She sat there, a monument to her own destruction, built on ego and deceit. I didn't touch her. Didn't scream. I adjusted my cufflinks, looked around the room, and said, "I think that's everything." Then I turned and walked out, the echo of her sobs behind me like a soundtrack to justice. It didn't happen all at once. That would have been merciful. No, Julia's collapse was a slow, grinding descent, public, painful, and pitiful. The week after the confrontation, HR at her company launched an internal review. She was put on leave, and within 10 days, quietly terminated for conduct violations. The email was sterile, clinical, stripped of the flair she once brought to the office. The woman who used to glide through glass doors in heels and confidence now exited through the back, cardboard box in hand, sunglasses failing to hide the humiliation etched into her face. Her coworkers, those who used to crowd around her at lunch, laughed too loud at her stories, hang on her every word, unfollowed her, blocked her, erased her from existence. Even Danielle, who once called her a sister, changed her number. Her LinkedIn was flooded with comments at first, innocent questions about what happened. Then it went quiet. Just her name floating in a void, connected to nothing. Her family didn't disown her outright, but they pulled away with the coldness of people ashamed to admit blood ties. Her father wouldn't return her calls. Her mother texted only once, "What you did was cruel. Don't come here for a while." Her brother unfriended her on everything. Even at the grocery store in our quiet town, people looked through her like glass. One woman crossed the street when Julia approached. Another whispered, not quietly, "That's the one who cheated on the tech guy." The tech guy. That's all I was now. The loyal man she'd traded for a stranger who'd ghosted her the moment the fire got too hot. Jay disappeared within hours of the public unraveling. Blocked her. Deleted messages. Unfollowed everything. He wasn't a lover. He was a tourist. And when the attraction lost its thrill, he vanished like a coward. Julia sent me her first message 4 days after the dinner. "Please talk to me. I don't know who I am anymore." I left it on read. The second came a week later. "I still love you. I know I don't deserve it, but I need to say it." No reply. Then came the emails, longer, desperate, rambling. She wrote about sleepless nights, panic attacks, how the silence was worse than screaming. "I walk around this apartment and still feel you in the air. I can't breathe. I miss you. I miss us. I know I ruined it. But if you have even 1 ounce of what we had left, please, let me try." She didn't know I'd moved already. A better place. Bigger windows. Brighter air. No ghosts. Then, one rainy Sunday afternoon, she showed up at my doorstep. I opened the door and saw her, hood up, makeup streaked from tears and rain, clothes loose on a frame that looked like it hadn't eaten properly in days. She looked older, not in years, but in weight. In consequence. Please, she whispered. I don't want to fight. I just want to say what I didn't say when I had the chance. I didn't invite her in. I stood in the doorway, letting the rain soak her silence. I was selfish, she began, voice cracking. I was scared of being ordinary. I kept thinking there had to be more, and instead of talking to you, I looked for it in someone else's bed. But it wasn't more. It was nothing. And I lost everything real because I couldn't face my own reflection. I nodded once, not out of sympathy, but understanding. It was the first honest thing she'd said in a long time. You were the best thing in my life, she said, stepping closer. And I burned you down to feel a spark. Please, if there's any way you could ever forgive me, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn it. Her voice was barely a whisper now. Eyes pleading, hands trembling. I let the silence stretch, let it weigh the air. Then I said it, low and calm. I don't see my wife anymore. Just the wreckage she left behind. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. Just breath. Just devastation. I closed the door, slowly, without a slam. She stood there, alone in the rain, for several minutes before walking away. She never came back. And I never turned around. Some things don't deserve a second chance. Some betrayals are too deep to heal. And some people only understand the value of loyalty once it's gone. So I ask you now, what would you have done if it was your wife?